for their lives. So we want to really equip them with the best knowledge that is available from around the world, and the best knowledge that applies to you in an Indian context of working, right? So that's what we're trying to do. But these are the 3 other sessions that are connected to this particular topic. Okay, now let's dive straight into it. So what is time management, right? All of us know the broad idea of what time management is, but if you have to really put it across in some kind of a definition format, this is what time management is, right? Time management is the process of organizing and planning how to divide your time between specific activities, right? That's a good broad definition of it. Another good way of looking at it is good time management enables you to work smarter so that you get more done in less time, even when time is tight and pressures are high, right? This is another good way of looking at it. So if you ask me, a very nice definition is to say how to divide your time between specific activities is a good core definition of the subject of time management. Okay. Now, I have an exercise, a question for you first up, and please use the chat box to give answers to this particular question. Write all 3 of your answers in the chat box before pressing enter, so I know what the 3 points are per person. But my question to you on this Sunday morning is, why is learning how to manage your time so important to your career? Or why is time management so important to your career and life for that matter? So I want you to put your answers down in the chat box. And you have a couple of minutes to do that. Okay, I'm seeing some very good answers. Yep. Very good. Great participation on this Sunday morning, guys. Very, very good. 148 people in the house. Very nice. 148 Indians who are taking their careers seriously and answering the questions. I'm very, very happy with that. Okay, some good answers. Achieve targets in the given frame. Okay, very good. To do job effectively. Okay. Okay, good. Some very good answers. Thank you very much, guys, for participating. Keep participating. Every time I ask you something, please use the chat box wholeheartedly to give your answers, because that is what will make this particular thing fun. Okay, so thank you very much for your input. Now, I think I'm basically summarizing what you're trying to say, but besides these 3 points, I'll also like to kind of go on top, take a more 360-degree view on this particular thing, right? So I think the importance of time management is extremely clear to all of us, whether we're managing our time well or not, right? And the first kind of reason why we need to manage our time well is greater opportunities to achieve important life and career goals. I think each one of us, if we're being honest to ourselves, will tell us that if we don't manage our time well, it's going to be literally impossible for us to manage our life well and our career goals. We're not going to be able to meet them, right, if we don't manage our time well. And that's why, I don't know how many of you all attended my session on how to succeed in your career, but typically what I put at number 1 in terms of succeeding in your career is your ability to communicate effectively. I put that as number 1. And I think the number 2 skill is the broad skill of time management, which is how do you plan well, how do you organize well, how do you understand time well. So if you understand these 2 skills, you will be way ahead of most other peers of yours. If you just understand these 2 skills, and of course there are a bunch of other skills to understand, but it's literally number 2, okay, on my list of most important skills. And I don't think anybody can reach their potential, anybody can meet their goals, anybody can get to the top of their game if they don't understand this particular concept. It is that simple, right? So if you're good at managing your time, you have greater productivity, greater efficiency, and you can operate with much lesser stress than you would do otherwise, right? All of us would agree with that. If we manage our time well, our stress levels are lower. If we don't manage our time well, we are always stressed. And that's not very good for us. That's not very good for our health as well. And when we're stressed, because we're not managing our time well, we also become unbearable to our family members as well, right? It's not very conducive for your relationship at home as well. And if you don't manage your time well, I think you will lose your credibility. You'll lose your reputation as a professional, right? So to like, and that's again, one of the most important things that you require. If you want to succeed professionally, you have to have credibility. You have to have a good reputation. And what I mean by that is people need to be able to trust you, right? People need to be able to trust you. And if they can't trust you, they don't want to do business with you. And where trust builds in a business situation is from very simple things. Trust builds from you being able to stick to your commitments, both the large and small commitments that you give people. And I'm sure all of you all would agree, and put a yes in the chat box if you agree with me, that if you don't manage your time well, you can never stick to your commitments, whether they're the small ones or the big ones. And if you don't stick to your commitments, you can never build credibility and never build a reputation with people. Because very simply, if you tell somebody that you're going to deliver something at 10 o'clock and you fail to deliver it at 10 o'clock, if you tell somebody that you're going to meet somebody at 10 o'clock and you reach there at 10:30 or forget to reach there, you're never going to have the kind of reputation that you need to have to succeed in any sphere of your life, let alone just the professional life. I'm glad a lot of you all agree with me. Thank you for the big yeses that all of you all have given me. Yep. I think yes, it helps build your brand as well. Right now, I want to go, before we get to the specifics of an important topic called time leveraging that we're going to discuss, I want to take a slightly more philosophical note, right? I think it's a rainy day in Bombay, right? It's a rainy day. It's a Sunday morning. I think it's a good time to kind of look at stuff from a slightly higher plane. So very often what I share with people is that life is nothing but time. It's that simple, right? Life is nothing but time. All of us know broadly that if you take the average age of how much an Indian lives, it's between 70 and 75, if I'm not mistaken, between 68 and 75. So if I take that, we broadly know how much time we have, but we can never be certain of how much time we have, right? So life is nothing but time. And not respecting your time is essentially not respecting your own life. It's that simple. Not respecting your own time is like not respecting your own life, not respecting your own self. And while we expect respect from a lot of other people around us, very often we don't show that same respect for ourselves. And not respecting your time, which means not managing your time well, not making most of your time, is the ultimate disrespect you can pay to yourself. So don't expect the respect of people if you don't even respect your own self. Does that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense, right? That life is nothing but time. So start respecting your time. Now, the second thought that I'd like to share around the importance of time management on a slightly higher plane is a beautiful quote that I love that says, whether you wake up or not, morning will come. Right? I'll repeat it. Whether you wake up or not, morning will come, right? Which means that whether you manage your time or not, whether you make the most of your time or not, it doesn't matter. Time will keep going by, right? And therefore there's another quote that says, take care of the minutes. The hours will take care of themselves. Take care of the hours. The days will take care of themselves. Take care of the days. The weeks will take care of themselves. Take care of the weeks, the months will take care of themselves. But it starts with you really putting the value on every minute that you have, because whether you make the most of your time or not, the time is going to pass anyway, right? And therefore, I would kind of really prod you all, each one of you all, to understand the subject of time very well so that you can start respecting yourself. You can start using the time because it's going to pass anyway, right? And the third kind of slightly philosophical point that I'd like to take is I have often seen that the difference between people that are highly successful, self-made rich people, and the difference between people that are not successful in their career very often boils down towards how they use their time. Because whether, irrespective of who you are, each one of us has 24 hours in the day. So it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. It doesn't matter what your background is. Each one of us has the exact same amount of time in the day. And often the difference between people is not the time, but how they actually go about using their time. So a lot of rich, self-made rich people often have this dialogue that we think is just a dialogue, but they're really taking it seriously, right? Where a lot of them will often say, they'll say, time is money. They'll keep saying this. You must have seen it in the movies as well, right? They say, time is money, time is money. And the thing with those self-made, prosperous, successful people is that they actually believe that time is money, right? Unlike most of us that don't value our time at all, they actually believe time is money, and they invest their time exactly like they invest their money in a way, right? That's their whole perspective of looking at it. They just do not take their own time lightly, right? And from today onwards, what I am trying to do with you through this particular session is very simply, I'm trying to raise your awareness towards your own time. And the minute you're more conscious, the minute you're more deliberate about your own time, you will, that raised awareness will give you more options, right? And those, then the more options you have, you can start choosing more wisely. But I want for each one of the 150 people here to kind of, 173 people here, to be more conscious, to be more careful, to be more aware of how they're using their time. And if I just manage to do that during this particular session, I think that each one of y'all will end up benefiting from it in a big way. So number one, just to kind of summarize what I say, number one, life is nothing but time. Not respecting your time is not respecting your life and not respecting yourself. Number two, whether you wake up or not, morning will come. So time is going to pass by anyway. Whether you decide to make something out of it or not, doesn't matter to time. It's going to pass anyway, right? So may as well respect it, may as well use it for your own benefit and that of your family. And the third point is the difference between people that are prosperous and not is often their approach and attitude towards time. Prosperous people, successful people always have this line where they say time is money, because they actually believe time is money and they use their time accordingly, right? So that is exactly what I want for each one of y'all. I want y'all to build your awareness towards time, be more conscious about how you're using your time, and in turn start seeing a different result. If this makes sense to you, give me a big yes in the box so that I know that we're on the same page and I'm not busy here yapping alone. Yeah. Yes. Good one. Okay, I can see the spirit. Okay, cool, good, great. Thank you very much for those big yeses. Okay, now this is what I was talking about, right? Time leveraging. That's what we're going to focus on and learn today. There are many things in time management, but if you don't understand time leveraging as a concept, everything that you learn about time management is useless unless you understand this particular idea. Okay, now to understand what time leveraging actually means, you have to understand what a lever means, because the word time leveraging comes from the word lever, right? That's what it comes from. So if you understand what lever means, you will understand what leveraging means, right? And in the simplest term, if I have to put what the term a lever means, okay, let's go for it. All of you in your chat box, tell me what is your understanding of what does a lever mean and what does a lever do, basically. So if you can tell me in the chat box, what does a lever do? Okay. Yeah, good. So I'm having some very good answers in the chat box, right? I like this spirit. So what a lever, if I have to put it in the most simplest terms, is what a lever does is it helps you with very little. It helps you with very little effort, to lift something which is very heavy. That's what a lever, that's the role of a lever. with a very little effort that you would put, it would help you lift something which is very, very heavy. Okay. And from that word lever, the word leverage comes, right? So often the word leverage is also used in financial institutions, right? Where they say, how will you leverage this particular asset, or how will you leverage this particular property? So this is a term used there. So which basically means is, how do I, with lesser effort, be able to get a lot more things done or lifted, right? So that's what time leverage actually means. Okay. I hope that makes sense to you. I'm going to just say this one more time. The word time leveraging, the word leveraging comes from the word lever. A lever is nothing but a tool that helps you lift something very, very heavy with little effort that you put in. And that's exactly what we need to do. We need to start using our time differently. So now if you have to look at the definition of time leveraging, this is what it is. People who are effective at leveraging their time allocate time to the things that matter most, the things that give them the greatest return. Those who leverage their time think critically about how they should be spending it and have a clear plan in mind. I want all of you all to read this particular thing very, very closely. I'm going to show you 2 slides and I'm going to show them twice because I really want you to focus and understand this concept. Okay, I'm going to repeat it. People who are effective at leveraging their time allocate time to the things that matter most, the things that give them the greatest return. Those who leverage their time think critically about how they should be spending it and have a clear plan in mind. Okay. In a nutshell, leveraging time is a strategy of using time in an intelligent, wise way to pursue your most important goals. It is the process of assessing and planning how to use your time to accomplish your goals. And I think this last point kind of summarizes the entire thing. Time leveraging is using your time in a way that gives you and your company maximum returns. Okay, so I think this is the last and the key word here. Time leveraging is using your time in a way that gives you and your company that you work for the maximum return. So you're not just using your time where it gives you some returns. You're using your time in a way that gives you the maximum return on time spent. Okay. If y'all have understood what I'm trying to say, please give me a big yes in the chat box if you're clear on these 2 things. Okay, good. I'm just going to go back and I'm going to show you the definition again because I want to spend some time on this definition so that you really understand it. Okay. Okay. Good to know that. Good to see that. Good to see that. Okay. Now, so throughout this particular session, what we're going to keep in mind is we're just going to keep this one line in mind, the line in the end. This line is what we're going to keep in mind. Time leveraging is using my time in a way that gives you and your company the maximum return. So that's how we're going to use our time, right? Where it gives us the maximum return. So I'm going to share 4 examples. I'm going to share 4 examples with you, which will help you understand the concept of time leveraging. Okay, so I'm going to take this example first. Okay, listen very carefully. You'll understand this topic really well if you understand these examples. So I was doing close to 8 years back, I was teaching this exact same concept to a bunch of professionals who used to work for an oil and gas major. I was in the city of Hazira in Gujarat, teaching them these concepts, right? It was a leadership session for young leaders, and I never do any leadership sessions until people understand time leveraging. At the end of this particular session, I had a gentleman come up to me, and he was teary-eyed, right? So he got very emotional at the end of the session. So he came to me at the end of the session, and he said to me, he said, "Sir, मैं कपड़े धो रहा हूँ." Okay, that's what he said to me. "Sir, मैं कपड़े धो रहा हूँ." तो मैंने बोला, क्या हुआ यार, मतलब what do you mean by मैं कपड़े धो रहा हूँ? So he said, let me just give you a little bit of my background. He said, I am from an engineering background. Um, I'm a bachelor. My office, I live very, very close to our factory, our plant. We live 20 minutes away from that. He says every day I go back home in the evening and I used to spend time on washing my own clothes, mopping my own floor, washing my own car, making my own food, then washing my utensils. I would spend close to, he said, 3 hours on these, 2 to 3 hours on these activities every day at the end of my day. And I used to get very tired doing it. And I would but I thought I was very smart because I thought I was saving like some 2,000 bucks possibly, right, on getting all these things done. But he said, today I realized that I have been, although I saved possibly 2,000 bucks every month, I realized how stupid I've been. He said, because for the past 5 years that I've been working in this particular company, he said, every appraisal of mine, my bosses and my super bosses tell me one thing. They tell me that I need to improve my business communication skills. I need to improve my ability to converse in English properly, which I don't have, because that is required for positions at senior management. He said, they've been telling me this for 5 years. And I have been complaining to them each of one of those 5 years saying, mere paas time nahi hai, right? I don't have the time to improve on these things. And today I realized that every day I've been spending 3 hours doing stuff that I could have easily outsourced to somebody, and I could have used those 3 hours or 2 hours every day to improve my ability to communicate, to improve my English skills. And the returns that I would have seen on that particular time would have been much more than washing clothes over the last 3 years, right? So he said, I realized that I thought I was being smart by saving those 2,000 bucks, but I was in fact being absolutely stupid, because if I'd used that time to communicate well, the returns that I would have seen on that would have been much higher than it was by washing clothes, right? Does that make sense to you? If this makes sense to you, give me a big yes in the chat box. I want to know that we're on the same page, right? And this is what the difference between people that succeed and the difference between people that don't is people that succeed because they're conscious and careful about their time. They only use their time for things that give them higher returns. They don't use their time for things that give them lower returns, right? There's a very nice quote that says, uh, are you being busy or are you being productive, right? Because it's so easy for us to be busy. It's very easy for us to be busy, but are you being busy with the right things, right? Are you being productive in the right fashion? There's another quote from Peter Drucker where he says, there's nothing more useless than doing something well that shouldn't be done at all, right? What a beautiful use of words, right? I'll repeat it. He says, there's nothing more useless than doing something well that shouldn't be done at all, right? So even if you do a wonderful job washing the clothes, right, you shouldn't be doing it at all. And that's a grand waste of your time, because you're not really using your time in a way that gives you maximum return. Okay, now let me give you example two. So when I first started my career, I used to work at this company called L'Oreal, right? And I don't know whether you know the geography of Bombay, but this particular company was located in Lower Parel. I would live in Kandivali at that point of time. I used to take a train every day to travel from my house to office, and it would take me close to 1 hour every day in that particular train. Now, the very interesting thing that happens in Bombay trains is that you more or less tend to enter the same compartment. You then end up seeing almost the same people every day, because you know who stands where, who jumps on the train at what time, right? So you kind of see those same people. You know where people get on, get off, because you just get familiar with them in a way, right? And a wonderful phenomena used to happen on that particular train, right? We used to get onto that train at 8:03, okay, and we used to get off in close to 60 minutes from there. And a wonderful phenomena used to happen. Each and every person on that particular train had 1 hour with them, okay, who used to get on at Kandivali and get off at Lower Parel. Each one of them had 1 hour with them, but each one of those people would use that 1 hour differently, right? Now, some people would use that 1 hour on the train to sleep. I don't know how they would do it in Bombay train. Somehow they would find the ability to sleep while standing, but some people would use that 1 hour to sleep. Some people would use that 1 hour to play video games. Some people would use that 1 hour to gossip about stuff. Some people would use that 1 hour in the evening, especially. They would use that 1 hour to sing bhajans. Some people would use that 1 hour to cut vegetables in the Bombay trains, right? Some people would use that 1 hour to read the newspaper. And I also saw some people that use that 1 hour to study, to develop their skills, to do something productive. So each one of those people had the same 60 minutes, but every person on that train decided to use those 60 minutes differently, right? Now, if you are a betting person, if you like to bet on stuff, who would you put your money on to succeed in their career? The person that was playing video games on the train for 60 minutes every morning, or the person that was trying to improve the skills? Even if you didn't know anything about the two people, who would you put your money on based on this one factor, right? I'm sure the universal answer that will come from all of y'all is each one of y'all would put your money on the person that was using that 60 minutes extremely well to upgrade himself, to learn something good, because he realized the importance of time. And the beauty of those trains is, the real beauty of those trains is that if you use your time well, over a period of time, you get out of that train pretty soon. And if you keep wasting your time in those trains, you're in those trains for a those crowded, mucky trains, you're in them for a very, very long time, right? If you don't use your particular time well. So that's the whole thing of how each and every person had those 60 minutes, but each and every person decided to use those 60 minutes differently. Some to maximize the returns that they had, some didn't value that time at all, right? Now, the third person, oh, we have Modi, right? So here I gave you examples of in a way, regular people. So now let's get to business leaders and important politicians and government leaders, right? The thing that I want to point out to you is whether it is you or whether it's me or whether it is Modi, each one of us needs to time leverage or not time leverage, right? It doesn't matter what position you're in. You don't need to be a prime minister or a CEO or a senior bureaucrat in order to leverage your time well. You get to those levels because you leverage your time well, right? You don't do it after you get to those positions. You get there because of doing these things, right? So I don't know whether you remember, and please don't get into the politics of anything. I'm not discussing the politics. I'm just taking an example of a political leader because he's all over the news, because we know about him all the time. So it'll just help you understand that example a lot better. So if you remember, in the first year of, I think, first one and a half year of Modi becoming the prime minister, there was a lot of talk around him doing a lot of international trips. I don't know whether you remember that, right? So everybody would kind of make fun in a way, he would make jokes and criticize the fact that he was making a lot of international trips, right? Now, rightly or wrongly, because none of us really know the realities of what's happening, although we have a lot of comments around it, but we don't really know the realities around it. But rightly or wrongly, with each and every prime minister of each and every country, all that him and his team is busy doing and thinking is, how do you need to use your time in a way that gives you the best return on your time spent, right? That's all Modi and his team, or any prime minister and his team, is doing. How do you need to use your time in a way that gives both you, your party, and the country maximum return? Are you getting it? That's all they're thinking about. So in the first year, a lot of his advisors and him, rightly or wrongly, thought that me doing these foreign trips will be the best return on my time spent, because maybe they were gunning for the Security Council seat at the UN. I don't know what the logic was, right? But they said that you going and doing these foreign trips and spending, I think, close to 65 days is what he spent doing it. You spending that 65 days doing these things is the best return of your time for you and the country, right? So that was one decision that they took, that we're going to spend 65 days doing it. Now look at the different levels of time leveraging. So after they decided that he needs to make foreign trips, the next thing that they need to decide is, now that I've devoted 60 days to this particular activity, okay, I may get that exact date, how many days they devoted wrong. I'm not an expert at politics, right? So now that you decided that you're going to spend those 65 days doing these foreign trips, which countries do I need to go to that will give us the maximum return on our time spent? Because there are 100 plus countries on this particular planet, right? I can't go to each one of them. So which are the countries that I need to go to that will give us the maximum return on your time spent? So then he must have chosen, I don't know what, 10, 15 countries that he thought were the most important to go to, okay, given the situation. Now, if you remember, in that first 1.5 or 2 years, he went to the US twice, right? Or thrice, if I'm not mistaken. I think twice for sure. And that's because him and his advisors must have thought that going to the US, given the fact that the US is the world's biggest economy, is the best use of your time, because maybe you will get foreign investment for them, so on and so forth, right? So even how many days out of these 60, if I'm not mistaken, he spent close to 10 days in the US, right? Out of the 60 days that he spent outside. And that's again, because rightly or wrongly, his advisors said that that would be the best use of your time. Now, in his first trip to the US, he had to spend 5 days there. So then his advisors are busy thinking, they're busy saying, okay, now that you're going to spend 5 days there, who do you need to meet? Because there are hundreds of people that need to meet you, but you only have that much time. Now, who do you need to meet in every minute of your trip there to ensure that you get the best return on your time spent, right? So if you remember, when he went to the US, he met the top 500 CEOs of their particular company. Then he met Mark Zuckerberg, because I'm assuming for the social media benefits that come from it, so on and so forth. So again, they're very, very particular about how each and every minute of their time is spent, right? They just don't take their time lightly. And if we follow a similar philosophy to doing that particular thing, all of a sudden, okay, we will start becoming super productive and start achieving a lot in my career, a lot in your career. Okay. Now, the fourth example that I want to give is a birthday party. And this I'm giving more in jest, but you'll understand what I'm trying to say, right? So I'm sure all of us have distant relatives that we don't like too much, right? I'm sure I'm not the only one. All of us have such relatives that we're not too fond of. And let's assume that you're staying in a place like Bombay, okay? And let's assume that one of your relatives who stays close to 3 hours away from your house, or at least 2.5 hours away from his house, a distant relative, you don't see him too much, but he's now throwing a big birthday party for his son, right? And this party is being thrown on a Sunday, and this relative, out of social obligation, now is invited you for that particular party, right? Now, listen to this. If you decide to go for this particular party, you are going to spend 2 hours going, 2 hours coming back, and possibly 2 hours at the party. So essentially, almost your whole day is gone if you say yes to this particular birthday party. However, if you think that, listen, I have no interest in this particular birthday party, this guy is calling me just for the sake of calling me for this particular thing. And if you end up saying no and make a very polite, nice excuse as to why you can't come, you have created a whole 6 to 8 hours of time that you can use in the way that you like it, right? If it's a Sunday, it doesn't mean that you need to use it for some work related stuff, but you can really use that time in a way that you really want to, right? Maybe you can spend quality time with your kids or your spouse, or you can exercise, or you can do something that you really get great joy out of. So in your personal life, basically time leveraging is about being careful of your time so that you can also use your time for enjoyment. You can also use your time to really do stuff that brings you joy, and you don't get obligated and just go to a birthday party just because somebody calls you and waste 8 hours of your time, but you can literally create those 6 to 8 hours of your time just by saying no, right? And being polite about it and making that particular thing, right? And now you can use these 6 to 8 hours exactly how you want to, and you can really get the maximum returns out of them, instead of just going for some birthday party where neither he wants you to be there nor you want to be there. But no, but I can't say no. I feel obligated to say yes to everything, right? And the minute you're that kind of a person, you're busy wasting your time doing 100 activities that you're not supposed to, and Then you feel like you're busy, you feel like you don't have time, you feel like you're tired, but you're not really being productive. So there is nothing more useless than doing something well that shouldn't be done at all, right? If you have understood these 4 examples that I've given you on the subject of time leveraging, give me a big yes in the chat box if you understood. Even if you may not agree, but at least have you understood the idea of what I'm trying to share through these examples. Okay. Very good, very good, very good. Thank you for the participation. Keep it coming. Keep it big, big yes, big yes. Yes, getting it, getting it. Okay, good, good, good. Okay, now listen carefully, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, for the great participation. Okay, now let me share 3 other points about time leveraging before we get into a little more detail about it, right? Listen carefully. So time leveraging is both a macro concept and a micro concept. Okay, now listen very carefully. So what I mean by this is, I think starting today, and we're going to have an exercise specifically for this, which I'm going to then have a discussion with each one of you all on. It's a macro concept, but I think each one of you all sitting here today must think that, okay, so let me take the last example that I gave you of Modi, right? On a macro level, he needs to decide, do I need to make foreign trips or not? And how many days? So this is the macro level decision that he's taking. On a micro level, he needs to take a decision of saying, okay, I have 1 day in this country. Who do I meet? Are you getting my point? I have 1 day in the country. Who do I meet? So at a macro level, do I do the trip at all or not? And at a micro level, I need to take a decision saying, now that I'm here, who do I meet? Right? So exactly like that, each one of you all need to take a macro kind of view on time leveraging, where you say, okay, what are the activities that I'm doing today that I shouldn't be doing at all? And I need to totally give off, right? And then on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis, you need to be asking yourself a question, which is this question, right? On a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis, you need to be asking this question to yourself, which is this the best use of my time, right? So if you ask me, how do I get better at time leveraging? All that I tell people is, from today onwards, carefully and consciously keep asking yourself just one question. And that one question that you need to ask yourself constantly, all the time, throughout the day is this the best use of my time? I can assure you that if we have a lot of parents in this particular group, all of them will say that if you're spending time with your children, helping them with their studies, or just playing with them, or spending time with them, if you're doing that particular thing, and if you ask yourself the question saying, is this the best use of my time? The answer that you will get is yes, it is the best use of my time, right? Building that bond with my child, building that quality relationship with my child is one of the most important things that I need to do. So although it's not a work activity, when you're doing that particular activity, the answer that you will get to that is yes, this is the best use of my time. But very often, if you're doing some other activity, and which could be a useless activity, like the most useless activity, washing a car. I think that's the most useless activity, because a lot of people spend 30 minutes, 40 minutes, sometimes an hour on it every alternate day. And you can pay somebody $350 to get it washed for the whole month. You're spending an hour washing the car when there are so many skills that you need to improve. And then when you don't do well at the workplace, you say there is some bad luck, some politics that's happening in office. You are spending your time washing a car, damn it, when you can spend $350 on it and get it done from somebody. That's because you have no value for your particular time. You have no respect for your particular time. You just don't have any consciousness for it, right? And then you expect other people to respect you. That is never going to happen, right? So from today onwards, there's just one line that you need to literally keep repeating on in your head. And this is one of the tips that I share with people. If you really want something to be on top of your mind, we look into our phone so much, right? For one thing or the other, the best thing to do is anything that you want as a repetition, you want to remind yourself, put it as a wallpaper on your phone, right? And the minute you put that as a wallpaper, every time you look at your phone, you can have this question which just pops up saying, is this the best use of my time? Right? And that will make you more aware of what you're doing and how you're doing it, so on and so forth, right? After I spoke to you about that gentleman from the oil and gas factory that came to me, along with him, a lot of other people were there as well. So after he shared his example of saying, I wash clothes for 2 hours, there was another gentleman that sheepishly raised his hand there, and he said, yeah, he washes two hours of clothes, but at least he said he's getting some exercise. He said, I have hired a maid, but I watch 3 hours of Arnab Goswami on Times Now every day, right? So he's like, I think it's better to wash clothes than to watch Arnab Goswami for 3 hours every day, because he's making a lot of money off it, clearly. But there are probably some 5 skills that I need to develop myself, which are, other than my communication skills are good, but there are 5 other things that I need to do, which I've not been doing. But I keep complaining to my boss and family and everybody that मेरे पास time नहीं है, मैं बहुत busy हूँ, right? But yes, I'm giving all my money in a way to Arnab Goswami, who is igniting fire there and making money himself, while I am wasting 3 hours of my time. So whether you're washing your car or you're watching some stupid show, right, it's absolutely the same logic. So the best way to improve your ability to leverage your time is to ask yourself that question all the time and be very honest to yourself. Right now, I'll just touch upon this second point, which is here. It is fluid and ever changing. Now, what do I mean by it's fluid and ever changing? If you start this life changing concept of time leveraging from today, in the first year, which is the next 365 days of the year, there could be one thing that you need to give more attention to, right? But that's not necessarily the same thing that you need to give more attention to in year 2, right? The focus on that particular one aspect could go down, and the amount of time that you need to spend on that thing may go down. And then you may have to take that same time and spend it now on something else and spend more time on that, right? So the whole idea of time leveraging is very, very fluid. What you need to focus on right now may not necessarily be the same thing you need to focus on 6 months or a year down the line, right? And that's why you again need to constantly ask yourself the question, is this the best use of my time? Is this the best use of my time? Is this the best use of my time? And the more you start answering this honestly, the more your life is going to change for the better. Okay. So if all of you are clear on what these 3 points mean, give me a big yes in the chat box before we go to the next. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have 192 people who have woken up on a Sunday morning to improve their lives. That's phenomenal. Hats off to all of y'all, guys. Hats off. Cheers to all of y'all. Will you explain the second point again? Okay, somebody's asked me to explain the second point. Okay, I'll just quickly touch upon it. What it's fluid and ever changing. What that means is, for today, over the next 6 months, you may have to devote a lot of your time to one thing. But maybe after those 6 months, that one activity gets completed, or you don't need to focus on that much. So then in month 7 to 12, you may decrease your focus or decrease your time on one particular thing and increase your amount of time that you need to spend on another thing. If we just take, for example, the skills that we were speaking about, right? That person that was washing clothes, maybe from today onwards for the next 2 years, he needs to just focus on his communication skills. But then after 2 years, he realizes, okay, my communication skills have gotten much better, but now I need to improve my ability to lead people. So maybe the time that he spends on communication skills goes down, and the time that he spends on leading people, that still goes up, right? So that's the way. It's ever fluid and it's ever changing. But again, the only way you get that answer is by constantly asking yourself the question, is this the best use of my time? Okay, now listen carefully, guys. This is damn important. So the 4 Ds of time leveraging, right? The 4 Ds, and I hope all the 192 people that are sitting there, I hope you have a notepad in front of you, right? If you don't have a notepad in front of you, this lecture is not, you're not watching Netflix here. This is a lecture of education. This is a lecture of taking thoughts, ideas back that you can use to your life. So I hope you actually have a notepad in front of you. And if you have a notepad in front of you, which I hope you do, or get one immediately, I think the first point that I want you to write is, life is nothing but time. I want you to make a note of that. Life is nothing but time. Okay. And if I don't respect my time, I don't respect myself. That would be my point number 1 that I make a note of in my notepad. Point number 2 that I make a note of is, Time leveraging is using my time in a way that gives both me and my company or my work the maximum return. Not just any return, the maximum return, right? Because if you do some work, it will always give you some return. If you wash the car down, you're saving 500 bucks. So you're getting 500 bucks of return every month, right? But it's not about getting some return. It's about getting the maximum return from your time spent, right? That's the second thing I'd like you all to make a note of. The third thing that I'd like you all to make a note of is this lovely thing that we're going to discuss, which is the 4 Ds of time leveraging. Do it, delay it, delegate it, delete it. And I'm going to focus on this one, and this one the most for you to understand it. Okay. So make a note of this. Do it, delay it, delegate it, delete it. Okay. Now I'm going to try to explain this through a drawing. Okay. Listen very carefully. So let's assume that you have a team that reports into you. Okay. And you could also use this, and even if you don't have a team that reports into you, you can use this same logic even otherwise. Okay. Now, let's assume that you have 3 reports to make. Okay. You have report A, report B, and report C. Okay. So these are 3 reports that you need to make at the workplace. And this will kind of explain to you everything. Okay. Now, report A is a report that is extremely important. Okay. This is a report that is going to go, so it's extremely important. This is a report that's going to go to the top management of your company, right? So it has certain, it's critical. This is a unique report. Now, what do I mean by unique report? It's not a standardized report that you're sending. You really need to create something unique out of this. And this particular report A is a report that requires a certain amount of expertise and experience. Okay, to make this report requires certain expertise, requires certain experience that you come with. Now look at the parameters. So you have, it's a very important report. It's going to the top management of a company. It's a unique, not standardized report, right? It's a report that requires some amount of expertise and experience that is there. Okay. And this is a report that needs to be submitted with it has a very tight deadline where it needs to be submitted. There's not too much of time to submit this particular report. So maybe report A is a report that you should do it yourself. You remember the last screen, right? Do it yourself, delay it, delegate it, delete it, right? So maybe this is a report that you should do yourself, given the limited time, given the uniqueness, management, so on and so forth. Now, report B is a report that, again, it's an important report. Okay. Again, this particular report is going to be sent to your top management, right? This is a report. However, there's one big difference. So this is a monthly report. Okay. And this is a standardized report. Now, what do I mean by standardized? You don't need to make it from a scratch every month, right? There's a certain format that is there for this particular report. You just need to enter that data, look at your insights and send it across. Okay. It's standardized, and there is, of course, there's no tight deadline, because you know what the deadline is every month, right? So it's a monthly report that you're giving, right? Now look at the factors. It's important. It's going to the top management. However, it's a monthly report and it's a standardized report, right? So maybe this is a report that you could delegate to somebody or get this done from somebody else. Now, why is it important to delegate a report like this, if it's possible for you to delegate it? Because let's assume that this particular report takes 2 hours to do. Okay. So if this report takes 2 hours to do, in a month, in a year, it will take 24 hours to do. So it will take 24 hours of your time. Now, if you delegate this to somebody, or if you get it done from somebody else, maybe initially it will take you 4 hours to train somebody else to actually get it done. And maybe it will take another 4 hours for you to oversee the other person making this particular report, right? Because before he submits it, maybe you'll have to go through it and give him your feedback, right? So 4 hours in terms of training him first, and 4 hours to oversee that particular entire report through the year. It will still be just 8 hours that it will take for you if you delegate this and delegate it well. Therefore, by delegating this particular activity, you will save a whole 16 hours of saving is what you will do. And if you use these 16 hours well, you can see the kind of returns that you're going to get on this particular thing. However, the first thing that I want you to notice is, first, instead of taking 2 hours, this is going to take 4 hours, right? And that's why, exactly like money, this is what they say about time. To make time, you need to invest time. Exactly like to make money, you need to invest money. So to make time, you need to invest time. And a lot of us are so hesitant to invest these 4 hours in training somebody or in briefing somebody or in delegating to somebody, that we keep doing that work ourselves because we feel that it's another 2 hours, right? And I often tell people that even if this particular person that you train, even if he quits, right? And if you look at the calculation again, it'll still come to another 8 hours, which is 16 hours. You will still be saving 8 hours. Even if that person quits that you train, you're still saving time, right? When you delegate that particular activity that you're not supposed to do. But again, you need to be aware about it. Most people are busy doing work. This is what I tell people. Most people are busy doing their subordinates' work. They're not even doing their own work. They're doing something that somebody else needs to do because they've never really thought about their time closely, and therefore they never use their time well. Okay, now report C. Report C is an absolutely useless report. Okay, nobody in this company knows why you're making that particular report. It's just being made for years, so everybody is making it. Nobody knows the use of that particular report, the useless report. So this is something that needs to be deleted totally. Now, what do I mean by deleted totally? Let's assume that that useless report is going to take 2 hours of your time every month. So that's 2 into 12. Okay, 24 hours is what you can save. Now, when I share this with a lot of executives across the board, they often say to me, they're like, sir, मेरे कंपनी में हम लोग वो ऐसे किसी को बोल ही नहीं सकते कि ये डिलीट कर देते हैं, ये रिपोर्ट नहीं चाहिए, हम लोग बोल ही नहीं सकते अपने बॉस को. So I tell them that's the problem to start with, right? That we are so bad at saying no. We are so bad at communicating our thoughts because we're always so scared. So we don't say no to people, and we don't say a no properly because we're not trained on saying a no. That's why one of the subjects in the Work Better Club through this year is a beautiful subject that I will be taking myself, of how to say no to people, right? So we're going to be discussing that subject on one of the weekends. But what I tell people is, maybe in a lot of cases, it's not possible for you to delete an activity totally. It's not possible for you to delete an activity totally. But if your boss comes to you and he says, okay, you know what, he gets very excited that some problem is happening. He says, I need a monthly report on this, or I need a monthly presentation on this, right? So if it becomes a monthly presentation, you are spending 2 hours into 24 into 12, which is 24 hours. But if you manage to convince him that, sir, let's not do a monthly report because monthly na jada ho jayega, right? Nobody will attend that meeting in the end. I understand the problem that you're trying to solve by asking us to make this particular presentation. And this is the problem that you're trying to solve. So you know what we will do? Let's make this a quarterly presentation that I make, right? A quarterly. So now look at what's happened. To make that presentation is going to be 2 hours, but it's going to be done 4 times a year, which is 8 hours. Again, you have saved a whole 16 hours that you can use for something else. Does that make sense to you? You saved a whole 16 hours. And what did you do? You just convinced your boss that we don't need to do this activity on a monthly basis. We need to do this on a quarterly basis. And just convincing him of that, being good at convincing and saying in a way a negotiated no to him, is saved you 16 hours of your time. So you have a whole 16 hours saved here. You have a whole 16 hours here, which then lets you focus on these A activities. This is what it lets you focus on. It lets you focus on these A activities that are really important, that are really unique, that you have to do. And the rest of these activities you can delegate or delete. Now, what does delay mean? Delay basically means that you're not taking a decision on that thing right now. You're keeping that thing for later, right? Because you're like, okay, I don't need to do this thing currently. Neither I need to do it, nor does my team need to do it. I can do that particular thing later. So you just delay it for now. But this, when it comes to time leveraging, these are the three important things that you need to remember. Okay, what are the activities that I need to do myself? What are the activities that I need to delegate to people? And delegate could also, it's not just off it delegation, right? Delegate also means you could delegate it to your domestic staff. You can delegate stuff to, like, there are 100 examples where you can actually delegate it. And what are the activities that I need to delete totally, or at least delete in part? What are those activities that I need to do? So all those who are clear of the concept of do it, delegate it, delete it, please give me a big yes if you understood what I'm trying to say in the chat box. Give me a big yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for the big yeses. Okay, now, if you have understood this particular point, now this is an important exercise for you, because if you don't use your time well right now, you are never going to use your time well. Okay, because we're going to take a lot of what you all put down here and we're going to have quick discussions on this, right? Now listen carefully to what I'm trying to say. Okay, listen carefully. Based on what you've learned, list 3 areas of your life where you will use the concept of time leveraging. Okay, now listen carefully. What I typically encourage people to do is, I encourage people to identify any 3 areas in their personal life where they're going to start using the concept of time leveraging, and any 3 areas in their professional life where they're going to use the concept of time leveraging. Now, 3 each is what I look for, right? Personal and professional. And now what I want you to do is, before you all put these answers in the chat box, if you have a notepad, if you have a pen in front of you, I want you all to really think, and this is going to take 2 to 3 minutes for you all to do. I want you all to really think about what are these areas in your personal and professional life. First, write them down on a piece of paper, not in the chat box. First, write them down somewhere else. And I want very specific answers, right? Because when it comes to the concept of time leveraging, it is basic arithmetic. And what I mean by arithmetic is, each one of us has got 24 hours in the day, right? So what we're basically saying is that I'm going to delete or reduce the time that I spend on a certain thing, and I'm going to devote more time to something else. So an example that people often give me when I ask them this exercise is, they say, I watch it during the lockdown. I have been watching 3 hours every day watching TV. I've been spending that much time. What I'm going to do now is, I'm going to reduce the 3 hours to 1 hour that I spend on watching TV. And now I'm going to spend 1 hour working out every day, okay, or doing some exercise every day. And I'm going to spend the 3rd hour spending time with my kids and playing something with them, or having fun with them, or having some kind of a discussion. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to, from the 3 hours that I spend on TV, I'm going to remove 2 hours from there. 1 hour now I'm going to start, still I'm going to watch TV. The 2nd hour I'm going to exercise. The 3rd hour I'll probably spend time with my kids, or I'll spend. So it's all, time leveraging is about addition and deletion. This is what I'm going to spend no time on or less time on. This is what I'm going to spend more time on. So that's one example. The other example that people give me, right? And I'm just sharing these examples so that it sparks some kind of ideas in your head. So somebody told me that I spend, in Bombay, right? This is what they said. I spend a lot of my time in a non-lockdown situation, or even in a lockdown situation, standing in long queues to go to DMart, right? I spend 3 hours trying to get it. Why? Because I get another 500 rupees lesser by spending 3 hours in DMart. Right now, you could possibly use the same 3 hours doing something else and order all the things that you want from Big Basket or one of these online things. Now, if you say, no, but I'm scared to go online, you're not scared to go online. You just don't want to learn how to go online, right? Don't just keep saying you're scared of it when the entire world is using it. Nobody is going to come and impact you, right? You're just scared and you don't want to learn how to use online resources. So you say all this rubbish to make yourself feel good. right? That I'm scared to use online mechanisms and the world is using it, right? So instead of spending 3 hours going to DMart, people tell me I'm going to stop doing that and I'm just going to order everything exactly from big basket and I'll get all these things at almost the same price, and maybe I'll pay 100 200 bucks more, but it'll save me 3 hours of going and standing there. So that's the second example that I can give you. I'll share a third example so that then that sparks off a few ideas in your head. Okay, this is somebody that wrote to me, actually didn't write to me, I met him like after close to 1 year. I'd done one workshop with them, then I met him after a year. So he said, sir, the ideas that you shared of time leveraging, they absolutely changed my life, right? So I said, what happened? What do you mean by change my life? He said, this was in Bombay. So he said, sir, I used to live like literally 2.5 hours. I had to travel one way to get to my workplace, right? I had to travel 2.5 hours to get to my workplace. And I would do that because I thought I was saving money. So I traveled 2.5 one way, 2.5 hours back. That is how much time that I would spend. And after this particular workshop, I realized that why am I doing that? I'm not respecting my time at all. And then I say I'm tired, blah, blah, blah. So he said, I knew that this was the office I wanted to work with. And so he moved his particular, and he was a bachelor. So he rented out a space which was 15 minutes away from his office. And he said, I had to move into a space which was much, much smaller than what I had 2.5 hours away, much smaller space. But he said, every day I saved 4 hours of my time that I was spending in traveling. I saved 4 hours. After I got those 4 hours, I literally didn't know what to do with myself. That's what he said. I didn't know what to do with myself because I was never used to so much of time. And eventually then I figured out that those 4 hours I started using to exercise, to develop my skills, to go on shadi.com to find prospective brides, which I wouldn't get time for otherwise. He said, I started using my time for all these things. And you say, sir, in 1 year, my life has changed so dramatically just by understanding the concept of time leveraging. It is moving close to my office and saving 4 hours of my time, 4.5 hours of my time, right? So that was another example that somebody gave me. I'll share one last example and then y'all can keep writing in. So I conducted this workshop. There was another gentleman, right, who I met in a while, and he shared this beautiful example with me. He said, you know, sir, after understanding the session of time leveraging, he said, my wife, again, this is in Bombay. He said, my wife, she moved from a very, very small town. She moved to Bombay, right? And when she moved to Bombay, she didn't know how to drive. She didn't know how to use the computer. And for years, what would happen is I would have a 6-day work week. And then every Sunday, I had to kind of wake up in the morning, then, you know, drive her, take her to whatever stores I had to take her to. And I would have to like spend my whole Sunday running some errands or the other, or doing something or the other, right? Is what I would have to do every Sunday. And then I would feel so tired, so irritated, so distraught. I would be in a bad mood, and that would again kind of lead to more differences and fights, even with my wife and my kids and stuff like that, because I was just so tired working every day. He said, after this session, I realized that to make time, I need to invest time and possibly invest money as well. I need to do both these things to make time. So I said, what did you do? He said, I learned from what you said. And the first thing that I did was I put my wife, I ensure that she enrolled, and I encouraged her to enroll for a driving, into a driving school so that she could learn how to drive. And initially she was hesitant to learn how to drive because she was like, how do I drive in Bombay? But she was very, very hesitant. But eventually what happened was she went for the classes, and then she became a driver, and now she's a good, safe driver. And she became very, very happy that she had learned this new skill, right? She said the second thing that I taught her, which she didn't know, is she didn't know how to use the computer too well, right? So she wasn't sure of that. So I said, okay, if you don't know how to use the computer well, let's invest the time and money in teaching you how to use the computer well, right? So 1 year they spent in terms of, she went for a class, she went for this, she really understood how to use the computer well. Said just investing this time and money into two things and really being a good husband and encouraging my wife to do this, it's changed our life so much, because now she does all the things that over the week, right, and saves me the trouble on Sunday of doing these things. And she said that has improved our relationship so much because she's feeling so much more confident about doing stuff. And we can spend the weekend so well doing stuff that we really enjoy instead of just running around. We go for movies now, we go to parks, we just spend quality time with each other instead of just running around. And just these two things of investing a little bit of time and money after understanding the concept of time leveraging really helped, right? So I'm just giving you these 3 examples to spark your own imagination on how you can use this concept of time leveraging. I'm so happy to see the answers that are coming, right? So I'm going to give you all like a minute more, 2 minutes more, and I want you all, if you look at the way Mohit Kumar has answered this, right? Answer it exactly like Mohit Kumar is done here. Beautifully done, right? Very good. I like answers. So you know what, guys? It's what you all are sharing is extremely nice. What I want to bring your attention to, in each and every case, what you need to really think, even if you don't put it down on the chat box, what you really need to think about is, what are the things that I spend lesser time on, right? And therefore, what are the things that I need to spend more time on? That is the way to look at this entire subject of time leveraging. Where do I need to cut down on the time that I spend, and what do I need to devote more time to? So either it could be a cut down or deleting that particular thing, okay? And therefore, what do I need to spend more time on? Because if you just think of what do I need to spend more time on, right? And if you don't delete anything from what you're doing, all of us have the same 24 hours. So you're not going to get more time to do that particular thing, right? Now, somebody you wrote there saying have a planner, right? It's such a beautiful idea of actually organizing your day, actually having a to-do list, right? Because at the start of your day, having a to-do list or organizing yourself, you may have to devote 10 minutes. So you may have to invest 10 minutes in actually doing that thing. But because you invest those 10 minutes in doing that planner or in doing that to-do list, it will save a lot of your time later. So time leveraging is this interesting concept of saying you need to invest time to sometimes save time, right? And to become more productive. Mahesh Iyer, beautiful. Delegate some repetitive work. Amazing. If you just do this one thing, Mahesh, my friend, you will start doing so much better by delegate some repetitive work. And do you know, Mahesh, I'll just like to share this thing. You know why we don't delegate repetitive work? Because in a lot of times we are so comfortable doing that repetitive work ourselves. We're so used to doing that repetitive work because it becomes sometimes brainless work for us, no? So we're so used to doing that work that we don't delegate it. So most of us are busy doing our subordinates' jobs, right? And when you attend my session, we're going to do a wonderful session through the year at Club, which is called How Do You Delegate Better? When you come for that session, my friend, you will realize so much about how you need to lead people to become productive yourself and to achieve your goals and that of your company. Okay. Yes, I have some lovely answers that have come. Vijaya Kumar, I hope watching TV. So in my experience, one of the biggest things that people end up saying, okay, is one of the things that takes their most amount of time these days is spending time on social media. Number 2, spending time on news apps. And number 3, spending time on TV, right? Which is news or otherwise. So these are 3 big things: spending time on social media, spending time, and I'm sure most of you all will agree with that, right? And today, if you actually think about it, and if you're being honest with yourself, most adults have become more addicted to social media than even children. So adults are behaving worse than children when it comes to stuff like social media, right? So I think one thing which is fairly common is that if each one of us kind of just do a few things which can be very important. Number 1, put all your social media notifications off. And if I were you, I would do it immediately after this session ends, right? Put all your social media notifications off, and especially put WhatsApp notifications off. Now somebody may say, oh, but what if I get an important message? तो क्या मोदी है क्या, प्राइम मिनिस्टर है कि इतनी important message आएगी कि 5 मिनट और 10 मिनट आधे घंटे के बाद नहीं देख सकता? They know, what if there's an emergency? What damn emergency is going to come? If there's an emergency, somebody will call you, right? But we've become so hooked to wasting our time on just going through social media uselessly, going through WhatsApp, stupid forwards. Then we forward those same forwards. Then we have stupid political discussions with people when we've got no idea head or tail of that particular issue. We spend so much of our time doing that. Yeah, Don't waste your time thinking about what the world needs to do. First, sort out your own life. If you sort out your own life, then you're in a good position to comment. People that live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones on other people's houses, right? People that don't have their own lives together shouldn't try to talk about what the world, what Modi needs to. यहाँ तो खुद का घर नहीं संभाल सकता तू, मोदी, केजरीवाल, ठाकरे ने कोरोना कैसे हैंडल करना चाहिए. We know all that knowledge. Here we can't keep our house clean. Often we can't manage the one spouse that we have, and you think of how Modi needs to manage the whole country, right? Here your own kids don't listen to you, and you are thinking about how everybody should listen to Modi. So we just spend our time on rubbish stuff that we don't need to, and we don't really devote our time to the things that actually matter, the things that are going to make us more prosperous, our lives more fulfilled, right? So the biggest time waster, which is going to take the most amount of your time, is doing useless social media. Number two, useless news. Keep looking at corona updates of what's happening and useless news. Number three, useless TV, where we watch either some rubbish on it or news on it again, and we're making other people rich. Now, guys, I'm all for entertainment, by the way, and I'm all for social media. So let me just have a disclaimer, right? I love ending each one of my day by watching at least half an hour to 1 hour of quality TV. I spend 1 hour every day as a mode of relaxation. I love having a favorite show to watch, but I'm not doing it for 4 hours every day, day after day, day after day, day after day. That's not what I'm doing. On the odd day that I know I got very lazy and I spent 2 hours watching, say, TV. The next day, I will ensure that I don't even watch 1 hour, right? So I'm really so careful about my time that I say, okay, 1 hour everyday entertainment, I'm going to have that. But I need to ensure that 1 hour I'm reading, I'm exercising, I'm doing all those things. And that leads to a much more healthier personal and a much more productive professional life. So put off all your notifications. I'd really encourage you to do it. And if you don't trust me on it, do it for a week and then go back to your original self. See what happens for a week. Put all your Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, if you're on Twitter, even worse, all your news apps off, all your emails off, right? Do that and see how your life changes, right? For the better. Yeah, start training. Rajesh, lovely points. I'm just looking at the points. We'll train subordinates. What lovely points are coming out from you all. We'll train subordinates, make reports standardized, make into store. Yeah, lovely points, right? Mohit Kumar suggests install a parallel WhatsApp, one for professional, one for private. In my opinion, even your professional one, you don't need to see on a minute-to-minute basis, right? You must have seen this thing very often when we're doing our work. We keep pressing send, receive in our email box. We keep refreshing our email box. Why do we keep refreshing our email box? Because we're waiting for some new distraction to come in, because we don't really know what do we need to devote our time on that will give us the maximum return. Okay, now I'm going to share one last example with you, and then we're going to go into a couple of other things like the test and the feedback and stuff like that. Okay, so I'll share. Guys, first of all, a big round of applause from me to all of y'all. Big round of applause for coming on this Sunday morning, for giving such fantastic answers, for being such a patient audience, right? So fantastic work. We have, and I'm going to answer all your questions. Don't worry, 180 people, 10 people have dropped off. They got bored, right? But 180 people are right here, raising their hand, putting the questions in. Okay, so I'll share one last example from you all. A big round of applause to you all. Okay, so I'll share one last work-related example, so that kind of possibly helps you. Okay. So I was doing a workshop for one of India's largest steel companies, okay? And this was a leadership intervention that I was doing with them, where I was meeting them once every quarter for 2 days, right? Very senior people, and they called me once every quarter to spend 2 days with them. In the first 2 days of my session, in the first quarter, I shared this concept of time leveraging. Like I told you at the start, I think it's a life-changing concept, so I shared it with them. And then the next quarter, when I went to them, the first thing that I do with all my participants, I always ask them saying, यार पिछली बार इतना सिखाया था, उससे क्या लिया और क्या implement किया? Yeah, because just learning something and then forgetting about it is useless, right? So I asked them saying, what have you taken from there and what have you implemented in your own life? So one gentleman raised his hand and he said, sir, that one concept that you taught me on time leveraging has changed my life totally. I said, what do you mean by change your life totally? He said, he said, last quarter, I won an award which I'd never won before, which was Employee of the Quarter. They had something like that, that I won that particular thing just based on time leveraging. So I said, what do you mean by that? He said every morning at the steel factory, he said every morning I used to do a site visit is what I used to do. Every morning I would do like a round of the entire factory. And he said that doing that round of the entire factory would take me 2 hours of time, right? Every morning I would do that. He said, after attending this particular session on time leveraging, I realized that I don't need to spend these 2 hours every morning doing this site inspection, because I have a subordinate that reports into me that has almost as much experience as me, who can do this particular job equally well. So the minute I finished this particular workshop, what I did was I went the next day and I delegated this particular activity to that particular team member or subordinate of mine. Now, he said a wonderful thing happened that I didn't expect. When I delegated this particular activity to my subordinate, he became extremely happy, right? And why did he become extremely happy? Because he realized that, यार ये जो काम है जो मेरा boss कर रहा था, अब मैं उसने मुझे सौंपा है, उसने मुझे दिया है. So I selected that right person, and he said for 1 week after that, he said I didn't even have to train him because he already knew what he had to do, right? Because he'd been watching me doing that for so long. But still, I ran him through the entire process close to 1 week. I really trained him on it, right? Spend those 2 hours. He said, and a magical thing happened. He said, from the second week onwards, 2 hours every day in the morning from 9:30 to 11:30 that I would devote doing that factory visit, I saved that much time, right? And my subordinate is happy as well that he's doing quality work that his boss used to do. I said, then what happened? He said, then what happened was, for years I've been thinking about doing this project for my company, which was a major cost-saving project, because at that point of time, the steel industry wasn't in very good shape. And one of the important things that he had to do was really, try to look at how to save costs. So he said, I started using these 2 hours every day over the next couple of weeks to create a project around how we as a steel company could save our costs up to some, he said, I don't know, I don't remember the exact amount, close to 15%. And what I did was, after creating this entire presentation of how we could do it, because I was an expert, I'd been, doing this site visit for years. I sought my CEO's appointment along with my boss. And he said, I actually made this particular presentation to my CEO along with my boss. And he said that my CEO was so delighted that he sanctioned me money to do this particular thing. And he said, this is the kind of proactive effort that is required. And because I came up with this particular project in that particular quarter, I want an employee of the quarter, right? Just because of this thing. Because he said, I was busy spending my time on something that I shouldn't have been doing at all. There is nothing more useless than doing something well that shouldn't be done at all. He said, this activity should have been delegated to my subordinate a long time back, and I should have been devoting my time to this thing. But he said, till date, I was busy doing this particular activity only because I wasn't giving my time respect. I wasn't conscious about my time. I was just going with the flow, right? And using my time just in the way that I want to, right? So this is another example for you to know, whether it's your personal life or whether it's your professional life, what kind of a life-changing impact the topic of time leveraging can have on you. Okay, good. Thank you very much, guys. I'm not going to tell you which company it is. Tata, somebody's asking whether it's Tata Steel. I'm not going to reveal the names of my